Welcome to the Lovecars On The Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars On The Grid, your global motorsport roundup podcast. This is season 2, episode 2. Is that what you say these days, these trendy hipster sort of things?
Kicking into a new year. We're kicking into a new year.
We're not kicking off with that much, but I'm delighted to say the FIA have got it right. We're going to talk about Dakar. They did indeed. We're going to talk about Ollie Webb. He's got a podium, another podium. He seems to get a podium every week, and a few other bits and pieces.
I've got some exciting new driver gossip for you. We'll come to that later.
Look forward to that as well. What we're going to kick off with then, it'd be rude not to kick off with the FIA and have a little chat about what they've been doing, what they've been
at Dakar. Well, but they proved that they can get decisions right. It was a good relief for the Dakar because Jutta Kleinschmidt, this amazing German driver, she won the Dakar outright. Fantastic driver in her own right. But she's now the FIA cross-country president. And having a bit of a background in the sport, and Audi were moaning like mad, because especially Carlos Sainz before the event started, hadn't got their fair balance of power. And she just watched the cars from a helicopter and seen the times and just come back and said, I don't know what you're complaining about. You know, your cars look competitive. And at the end of the Dakar, as we promised, we've change the balance of power. So in one nice swoop, just said, oh, do shut up, get on with it.
So what you're telling me is somebody at the FIA has applied some common sense.
Yes. And maybe it means that we should get a Formula One world champion to come and do Formula One. Alan Prost would be fantastic, or even better, Alan Jones. He'd be great. Alan Jones just reject all appeals and just tell him to get on with it. But the FIA, they're running the Dakar very well. They had a stage cancel when they tried to do the cars and bikes using the same loop 2 days running, and it was too dangerous for the bikes. So they quickly made the decision not to continue, took them onto the public roads and reorganised it. So it's been run very well under Jutta Kleinschmidt's mastering. Yeah. But it's all going well, and it's still very exciting. And of course, the Audis have actually won 3 stages now, with Sainz, Petter, Hansel, and Ekstrom all winning a stage. So Audi they're on the pace. But they had their problems with especially that first day with that tricky road book. And Sainz is now moaning about that. He's still kicking off. Oh, we've lost the Dakar because of the road book. He doesn't half moan a lot.
All these old drivers moan a lot, don't they?
Well, yeah. It was a tricky. Obviously, a lot of bikes got low. We had those ridiculous scenes with motorbikes all looking in different directions, and they made new tracks, which when the cars came, they couldn't see where the real track was. It was a dodgy notation in the road book, but it was the same for all, and some got through and some didn't. And one man who loves his navigation, always Alataya, still leads out front. He hasn't had any big penalties. We had a big diff scare today on the Monday stage. The rear diff exploded almost. He had to get home, lost a lot of his lead, but he's still 37 minutes ahead of Sebastian Loeb, who's doing really well in the Pro Drive car. He's chasing him home. Whereas Britain's Michael Orr is up to 3rd place, our only competitor with a chance of winning the cars. He's the navigator of Rachid Al Raji. They're up to 3rd in their Toyota. Another Toyota drama as well. Some might have seen it on the telly. Needell, the South African driver, has been doing it with Toyota for years. He won it 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. He unfortunately knocked a couple of motorcyclists off. And the first one he got a 5-minute penalty for. You saw the telly, it was a very narrow stretch between rocks. He just sort of understeered in the soft sands. He was trying to get by a stationary bike and knocked him off the bike and got a 5-minute penalty. But then about 3 days ago, he came over at the top of a dune and there was a bike lying on the dune the other side. And he landed on the bike, missed the rider and paid for the bike and paid for his damages and everything else, but got a 5-hour penalty.
But how is that his fault?
Toyota, well, I know. Well, they have a warning. That's what I was about to come to. They have this sentinel system. They always have a bleep going on to warn you of a proximity of a vehicle. I'm not quite sure. At first, Toyota said that the navigator has to press a pedal to hear what the sentinel. I don't know. I couldn't quite understand that. Anyway. Toyota appealed, and it turned out the sentinel wasn't working that well that day, and they may have only got 2 seconds warning that there was a bike over the other side of this huge sand dune. So obviously, it's a huge danger. You often see these cars; they just launch completely blind over these crests. So they do have this onboard warning system, but anyway, they appealed that. So De Villiers got back into his 4th place, but he's now had more troubles. He's down in 7th. So that's all pretty good. It's still exciting stuff. 4 days to go, 4 more big stages for the finish on Friday. We still have Sam Sunderland back in the win for Britain, trying to win for the second time. He got knocked back to second place on his bike on Sunday, but he's taken the lead again today. But it's bikes as big shunts, I mean, Sam's teammate, the Aussie Daniel Sanders, who led early on, he's out. I mean, a big shunt, injured himself. The USA star Skylar Howes, he's smashed himself up. He's out. I mean, it's such a punishing event on bikes. We had Daniel Petrucci, and I love, Carlton Kirby, his classic Carlton Kirby, who early on was calling him Petrucci. He just wafts with the flow. He doesn't know everything and all the riders and drivers, but Petrucci won a stage. He was in tears afterwards because he's an amazing, passionate guy. On the interview, his father brought him up. They had no money, very poor family, and I wanted to make my mark in motorcycling, and he's won a MotoGP race, and he's now won a Dakar stage. So he's the first ever rider to win MotoGP and a Dakar stage. So
amazing. He
was in floods of tears. So it was wonderful to watch. Our other Brits are still going. David McBride, we've got to G up the Brits. Our British list, he's down at 50th and still going. David Mabbs is 104th, and Simon Hewitt's 130th. So, but they're still out there. And one Brit I mentioned, I should give a mention to because I didn't mention him earlier on. We had Tom Bell in the lightweight prototypes, a little side-by-side motorcycle-driven things. He was up to about 6th or 7th, but he dropped back to about 18th, and he's now up to 11th. So let's go, Tom. Top 10 for Tom. But I just love watching that. I still watch it every night. And the Dakar Heroes is often the best. You just see these privateers struggling. And there's one of these lightweight prototypes. And you're on board with the two people, but they rolled it, so they're now on their side. And they didn't move at all, and just sort of sat there because they knew all the locals. They'd obviously seen locals in the area. And they just waited till they were put back on 4 wheels, and off they went again. I mean, it's an amazing event, and I do watch it. The rest of this, it's now moved. If you had your TV on Eurosport 2, it's now on Eurosport 1, 10:30, I think, for the last 4 nights. Go watch it this week. All ends on Friday. Don't miss it.
So is it unassailable lead? I mean, 37 minutes, is that,
No, never unassailable. He said he had a diff go, so he had to finish half the stage on front wheel drive only. And luckily it wasn't in the dunes, because if that happened in the dunes, he would have been dead, But
so anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Yeah, it's still, these navigational errors, you can lose half an hour, you can lose an hour. If you take the wrong route and lose where you are. So, the bikes, where have I got the list? The bikes, they're covered by, Sam's got a 4-minute lead. Well, there's 3 riders within 4 minutes of him. So there's 4 riders in a 5 minute. 5 minutes is nothing. You can lose that so easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot more.
Massive drama on the Dakar, as always.
Good. Glad to hear it. Can I give you? It's not really drama, but a bit of Formula One news.
What have you got from Formula One?
If you remember at the end of last year, I'm not very good at pronouncing names. Otmar Schaffner, is that how you pronounce it?
The Aston Martin bloke. Aston Martin team principal, yeah.
He was rumoured to be going to Alpine, I believe, end of last year, and then he came out with his statement saying, I have no intention of...
I've never spoken to them.
No,
like
no
they all do.
We're still not confirmed where he's going, but he has left Aston Martin. So my bit of Formula One news. So I don't know where he's going to be going or what he's going to be doing, but kind of other news for us or for me, Ollie Webb. So Ollie Webb has been on.
Yeah, we'll come to him later. Yeah, we've got the golf race coming up. Yeah, he had a podium, didn't he? We'll talk about the golf race in a minute because I've got some actually quite exciting news. Well, I don't know if it's exciting or not. Well, I always like looking at the British Formula 4 drivers and who's going to move up, and touring car drivers we talk about. It was a very slow week this week. But thanks to motorsport.com, who did a huge full page on their online about this Australian woman, Renee Gracie, who I hadn't heard of. I'd missed this story. Anyway, she's over in America at the moment.
What's she doing?
She's trying to get into NASCAR, but I don't know. I looked it up, and she did karting. Then she did Porsche Super Cup in Australia for a couple of years. But 15th was her best championship position, and then she did some of that Super 2, the sort of supercars second division. And but again, she was only 18th in the championship in 2015. So I don't quite know, where all the excitement is. But anyway, she hasn't actually raced anything for the last 3 years, and now she's trying to get a NASCAR driver.
So how is she going to get a NASCAR drive? What's so special about her? What I don't understand.
Well, I'm not sure, but I did look up what she's doing in the last 3 years, and maybe even help. I don't quite know what it is. Apparently, she's an online adult entertainer.
Well, that could be.
Do you know what one of those is?
She could be an influencer. She could just be one of those sites like OnlyFans,
Oh.
and she could be an influencer.
The adult world.
She can obviously drive.
involved.
She could. I'm gonna
Right.
and remind me of her name. I need to do some research.
Oh, do you? Yeah, do you? Yes. Yeah, research Renee Gracie. Renee Gracie. Anyway, she hopes to be in NASCAR next year, but I somehow doubt if she'll get a free drive.
Good luck to Renee, I say. And I've looked forward to doing some intensive research. I've got some news on a British Formula 4 as well, actually. This is from Rodrigo de Periola. He's one of our mates. He leads.
Yes, yeah.
Good guy. And there's a Peruvian driver who you might have heard of, Matias Zagazeta, and he's hoping.
Yeah, he's been in Britain doing Formula 4, I think. I don't know
Yeah,
where he's
exactly. So,
but yeah, send in all if you want us to mention your drivers, let's hear. We'll meet them out. We'll check out how good they are.
And Rodrigo,
and we'll mention them. We need news.
Rodrigo's one of these guys that can write in all these different languages so fluently, and we can barely even speak English between us. But so hello to Rodrigo.
Of course, as you mentioned, Ollie, they've been back on this. Racing has resumed. We're back on tracks. The GT cars kicked off last weekend with their Gulf 12-hour race.
He's always on the podium. He's always on the flipping. I haven't had a single
all right, but I'll tell you the secret how to do it. You should do the Gulf 12 hours.
Why?
Because there are only 15 cars in the race. Valentino Rossi was supposed to, sadly didn't make it. It's in Abu Dhabi. In fact, Ben Barnicoat, the British driver, he won overall being the important word here, in the winning Mercedes team. And our mate Ollie, it's still a great result. But he was actually in the GT4 class, finished 11th overall to win the GT4 class with his fellow Brits, Ian Campbell and Jamie Clark. But as a tip to you as where to race next year, there are only 3 cars in his class. They all got on the podium, Paul. So next year, Gulf 12 hours for you in a GT4 with Ollie, and the podium awaits.
Oh.
But I don't know why it only gets 15 cars. Well, it's an expensive one, because this weekend coming, the GT3s move over to Dubai for the Dubai 24 hours, and this is part of the what's the name of the sponsors tire company? There's a whole series of 24-hour races, and they got 87 entries.
Wow!
And there's GT3s. Was GT, but they let in touring cars, they let in front-wheel drive hot hatches, Cupras, BMWs, little hot hatches. So it's the most amazing 24-hour event. It's peppered every year with these zone 60s, where it's that yellow flag zone, where they have to drop to 60 Ks and cruise through these zones, and they race again. And so half the race has got one part of the track with the zones. I think it's 60 or 80, maybe it is. But so GT racing's kicking off big time with the 24 hours at Dubai. But otherwise, we're all just building up for the end of the month when, of course, the Daytona 24-hour race, fabulous. The IMSAs, that's got a wonderful entry. IndyCar drivers, Formula 1 drivers like Montoya. So, and of course, the Monte Carlo rally is only a week or 2 away now. So it's all beginning to kick off.
So talking of kicking off, 2 things here. One, why don't we have a bit of a kickoff and get you with Ben next week? Because at least you can talk a bit of racing, and he's got a completely different opinion to you. Ben Collins is the ex-Stig, BBC Top Gear Stig. He's very much a Max camp, and you're the Lewis camp. So I'd like to get a bit of that.
So he's always wrong, is he? He's always wrong. Is that we had to pretend to be a racing driver? We had to cover himself up as a Stig because he couldn't face the real world.
Well, we'll see about that. We can discuss that next week. And also in terms of kicking off, what else are we going to do? We're going to do something. I don't know. We've got to get out there. With the podcast is doing well, but there's not much going out there. So maybe you give us your thoughts and views and mention your racing drivers, your favorite racing drivers.
I could talk about Daytona 24-hour race for hours, because that's just the most wonderful event. And
are you still going?
No, we go to the Daytona 500 NASCAR race while we're going with the little party. I've got to phone Steve up. Motor Passion, the place to go for exclusive chaperoned motorsport events like the Daytona 500. But no, the Daytona 24-hour race.
Right. Okay.
I did that in the Group C Aston Martin Nimrod, and just had some amazing. But that was my first ever trip to America. And when I did that, there wasn't a bus stop chicane between NASCAR Turn 2 and NASCAR Turn 3. So I went down that back straight at 200 miles and down up to the... It was an amazing experience, wonderful. I've been very lucky, that I had these weird and different experiences. And that's why I love seeing, Formula 1 drivers coming back in and doing sports cars and other forms of motorsport. Because I think they're so tunnel vision in Formula 1 now. They don't do anything else. And you see rally, taking off for a season out to go rallying, like Kimi did. And he loved it, rallying, do something different. So, Daytona 25. And it's big time. It's because, the sports car world is really growing and growing. There's new regulations coming up. So really this Daytona 25 is the beginning of a very huge uplift in interest in sports cars.
Good stuff. So let us know, as always, comments below. We'd love to hear your feedback. Love to know what you want us to talk about as well. And next week, maybe you'll have Ben Collins on with Tiff. Who
actually was a huge NASCAR fan. He won the British NASCAR and he was desperate to go in. He went out and tested NASCAR. So that'd be interesting to talk to him about NASCAR. Because that is one thing he agrees with you on. It's a big challenge.
Or should we get Ollie Webb so he can talk about, no doubt, another podium that he's going to get next weekend?
Bring all his trophies. He'll bring all his... And also, he's too influenced. He'll have one watch on that wrist, another watch on that. He'll have a peak. He'll change the peak cap every 5 minutes for a different sponsor's logo. And, of course, he won't look at the camera. He'll be talking like this all the time, won't he? It'll be, And, yes, I was on the podium, because...
Cheers, all. For those of you that couldn't see, Tiff was doing his influencer poses. On that note, see you next week. Cheers.